Today on 7 Action News at 4, in the crosshairs. A round of powerful storms barreling across the state, now taking aim at Metro Detroit. Who's most at risk for severe weather and when the worst of it arrives? Plus,
a windy day here in Florida as Hurricane Dorian continues to move off of Florida's coast. We're taking a look at what people are doing ahead of this storm.
And a big change impacting how you shop. Cashierless stores are expanding with smaller businesses getting in on the trend. Why they say this is all about enhancing your experience.
And unthinkable tragedy. A terrible accident claiming the life of a 17-month-old baby in the driveway of her Detroit home, who police say was behind the wheel, and what we're learning from the neighbors. It's all ahead right here on 7 Action News at 4.
Taking action for you. 7 Action News at 4 starts right now.
Good afternoon to you. I'm Carolyn Clifford. So good to be with you on this Tuesday. We begin with that round of potentially severe weather taking aim at Metro Detroit this evening. 7 First Alert radar showing a batch of powerful storms barreling through the state right now. Southeast Michigan in the crosshairs with the highest risk for severe weather we've seen in a month. Chief Meteorologist Dave Rexroth is tracking it all for us. So Dave, when can we expect the storms to roll in?
Well, the time frame here is 7 p.m. on until about midnight, all right? So there's a 5-hour window, and Carolyn is correct. About a month and 5 weeks or so, almost 6, as a matter of fact, that we had this kind of a risk. It's not a high risk. It's a slight risk, but we just haven't been real busy lately, so we're watching. You can see on radar now, 7 First Alert radar, maybe a little shower getting started out by Jackson. But the focus for us right now is the action that's getting started here, coming out of Green Bay, working its way toward Traverse City. You notice how quickly that flares up, and if you kind of do the dot to dots, there's a front that's going to be pushing that toward us. So it'll be coming from the west and northwest. So look to the skies in that direction. Here's one of our better radar, looking at Futurecast now, 7 o'clock, 9:30 in the metro area here, and then working its way farther southeast as we go along. So it'll be fairly quick hitting. But it could be quite intense as we go along here. It's done by about midnight, so 7 p.m. to midnight with damaging wind the main concern. Hail and flooding, all right, the possibilities, and even an isolated tornado not out of the question. We haven't done that for a while. Make sure you know how to get warnings. Of course, we got you covered. WXYZ app, Storm Shield app as well, plus everything we're doing on social media online at WXYZ.com. We'll keep you covered. Make sure you're ready. Just watching the skies, waiting for now.
All right, thank you so much, Dave. Talk to you in just a bit. Now we're going to turn to breaking news in Allen Park, where an overturned semi is causing some serious backups during rush hour. Chopper 7 was over the crash just moments ago. It happened on the westbound ramp of I-94 heading to M39 South. That's in the Downriver area. Right now, that ramp remains closed, and drivers are being urged to find an alternate route. We will certainly let you know when that ramp reopens just as soon as we get that updated information into the 7 Action Newsroom. All right, we're going to keep an eye on a lot of things, including the heartbreaking situation from a 17-month-old toddler losing her life in a car accident. The tragedy unfolding this morning on the Southfield Freeway in northwest Detroit. 7 Action News reporter Brian Abel is live in the neighborhood with the very latest for us. So, Brian, what have you learned so far?
Well, Carolyn, just an awful situation that unfolded this morning. On the first day of school for many, a mother allegedly backing over her young daughter at a driveway right behind that large tree just before 11. And according to police, the 22-year-old mother was behind the wheel. Investigators just left the scene here. Now we're told that toddler taken to the hospital. That's where she was pronounced dead. Police zeroed in on a Chevy Malibu that license flagged as one police should confiscate if they come across it. No official word yet on why that is. Now the car was towed from here, and neighbors, they are reacting to this tragedy.
I couldn't imagine how she feel, and I'm quite sure it just had to be an accident, because I mean, I just don't believe it was purposely done. And no, I could not imagine, because I mean, I would just be devastated. Like, there's no coming back from that.
Now we also watched as police briefly went inside the home, and we did just see some family members come back here not too long ago. A difficult day, as you can imagine, here on Faust. Reporting live, Brian Abel, 7 Action News.
Just horrible, unimaginable, really. Thank you so much, Brian, for the live report. Okay, we're going to turn now to the latest on Dorian. You are looking In a moment, at live pictures off the Florida coast as millions of people await the storm's arrival, the Category 2 hurricane is finally on the move after stalling over the Bahamas for nearly 30 hours. It was the strongest storm on record to hit the area, leaving at least 5 people dead. Let's turn it over to Annie Taylor now with a look at how they are coping with all the devastation. Annie.
The devastation continues to worsen across the Bahamas as Dorian comes to a crawl. More than 13,000 homes have been damaged or destroyed. The flooding is still causing problems, trapping people in their homes until they can be rescued. The U.S. Coast Guard is jumping into action. Crews have helped bring nearly 24 people to safety. Meanwhile, though, in Florida, the conditions are getting more treacherous. Chris Stewart has the latest from Cocoa Beach.
Now, right now we're in a mandatory evacuation zone, but you wouldn't know that taking a look at the amount of people showing up right now at the Cocoa Beach Pier. People coming down, taking a look to feel the wind that we're feeling right now. That's pretty consistent, but also the surf that they typically don't see here. Much stronger than you would on a regular day. Dorian off the coast right now. This has been such a slow moving storm over the last couple of days. At some points, not moving at all. So people are coming out, preparing to hunker down later on, but getting a look at these conditions, especially some kite surfers that we saw going out into the water right now.
I mean, I think to each his own. If you feel scared, you should get out, but if not, it's definitely fun. I mean, it's beyond crazy. I came to see the craziness, and it's definitely crazy.
Now, we have felt a little bit of rain on and off this morning already. We felt a little bit last night as well, but Dorian really expected to make its impact here as the day continues on, certainly tonight into Wednesday. In Cocoa Beach, I'm Chris Stewart. Back to you.
Chris, thank you. As dangerous as these conditions may be, scientists with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association are flying straight into the storm. They're using a variety of tools to get information that's extremely important to us on the ground. Hurricane hunters start by flying into the eye of the storm with a turboprop plane. And as they fly through, they'll drop drones that can read temperature, wind speed, wind direction, pressure, and humidity. There's about 30 to 35 of them. Now, these drones give NOAA a detailed look at the structure of the storm, as well as its intensity. AccuWeather says these readings can make a hurricane forecast about 30% more accurate. NOAA also recently developed a device that measures wind speed and rain rate, and that can help forecast the intensity of storm surge. Now, storm surge is when there's an abnormal rise in sea level. NOAA has warned people before that they shouldn't focus on wind speed, but storm surge flooding. It's usually the major cause of deaths in hurricanes. Hurricane hunters also started using a new tool this season. It's a Doppler LiDAR. Not a radar like you've heard before. A LiDAR measures wind motion as well as wind speeds near the core of the hurricane. Its goal is to predict when a storm will intensify. This is the first year that NOAA has been able to use it all season. And flight cancellations across the southeast are having a ripple effect nationwide. More than 1,000 flights canceled today, the second straight day that happened. And some airports are expected to reopen in the next 24 hours. Now, in the Bahamas, this is the scene outside a building at the Freeport Airport. Water simply taking over everywhere. This is supposed to be the airport's runway you're looking at. It's unclear at this time just how much damage has been done. Well, it's not just Amazon getting rid of cashiers. No, smaller businesses are starting to make their change.
Many other retailers, including ourselves, are looking at this as a way to really enhance the customer experience.
Coming up, how this new technology could soon affect your shopping experience.
Thank you, Annie. Also ahead on 7 Action News at 4, raising the stakes. United Auto Workers members authorizing strikes against Detroit's Big Three. Why the union is setting its sights on GM and what it will mean for negotiations with Ford and Fiat Chrysler. That and more still ahead right here on 7 Action News at 4. Thanks for being with us.
The Coast Guard has called off the search for any possible survivors of a deadly boat fire off the coast of California. 20 bodies have been found. The other 14 are presumed to be dead. 5 crew members were able to get to safety. It's unclear at this point what the cause of the fire was. Well, Walmart announcing big changes today in light of recent mass shootings. The retailer saying it will stop selling bullets for handguns and short barrel rifles once stores run out. They also plan to stop selling handguns in Alaska. That's the last state where they sold them. Now, Walmart will still carry hunting-style type weapons and ammunition, but they're also asking customers to stop open carrying guns in stores. It does not affect those with concealed carry permits. One of the people hurt during a shooting spree in West Texas is opening up about his experience.
I saw when the car sped up. I said to myself, that was the guy that shot me. When stuff like this happen, I just say to myself, oh, another shooting again. It becomes a normal thing.
Well, that man was driving a truck when he was shot by the suspect. The bullets went through his hand, arm, and chest. Fortunately, he is expected to make a full recovery. However, he will always have a piece of shrapnel in his lungs. Well, there are questions about what's going to happen with new gun safety legislation when Congress returns after a number of recent mass shootings. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says today he's waiting to hear from the president on what he will support. In a radio interview, the senator says he expects to get an answer on that next week. Democrats have been pushing Senate Republicans to take up bills the House has already passed, including the expansion of background checks. Well, YouTube is cracking down on hate speech. The company saying it's removed more than 100,000 videos. It also says it's targeting channels as well, having removed more than 17,000. YouTube says the content is identified with automatic filters as well as manual reviews. Stores both big and small, they are testing the use of artificial intelligence to improve your experience. The technology allows customers to literally take food off the shelves and to leave the store without standing in the checkout line, automatically charging their credit card. We found one store in Denver joining in on the trend of cashierless stores. A coffee and a few snacks are a must when heading to work for Austin.
I have one goal in mind, it's just whatever I want to get in that store and get out there, get out of it as fast as I can.
But he says it's not always the case.
The lines are always pretty long and self-checkout isn't as efficient as people make it out to be.
This starts to get slower when maybe you have produce and you literally have to go through and try to find the bananas or whatever you're buying. Well, struggle no more. That's actually changing with technology now. Come 6 months from now, Mike Fogarty, owner of Choice Market, says they plan to introduce a cashierless system using artificial intelligence.
So it's using cameras, sensors, and other things within the store to monitor what's being taken off the shelf, what a customer's walking out with, and ultimately charging it to their credit card or the app.
Amazon Go stores were the first ones to eliminate the checkout line, and now companies like Sam's Club are testing out the technology too.
Many other retailers, including ourselves, are looking at this as a way to really enhance the customer experience. And my opinion is you'll see this in almost every retailer in the very near future.
As far as jobs are concerned, Fogarty says he doesn't anticipate having to let any employees go.
Well, that's certainly good news. Thank you so much, Annie. The United Auto Workers raising the stakes today in contract talks with Detroit's Big Three. The United Auto Workers Union saying that 96% of its members have voted to authorize strikes against the automakers. The union also named General Motors as their target at the bargaining table. That means any deal it makes with GM will set the pattern for Ford and Fiat Chrysler. The moves come amid a federal corruption investigation into union leaders, including United Auto Workers president Gary Jones.
A lot of rank and file very angry about what's going on. They may just reject what leadership gives them. So unless GM comes up with a real sweetheart of a contract, I think it's likely we're going to see a strike.
The union has 11 days to hammer out a deal. Their current contracts expire with the Big Three automakers on September 14th. We'll certainly keep watching that one. Well, right now, parts of southeast Michigan are under a lakeshore flood warning. You are looking at the view from Shopper 7 over the Lake St. Clair shoreline this afternoon. The National Weather Service says strong winds and high lake levels are pushing water onto shore. It's putting homes and businesses at risk from Anchor Bay to Harson's Island. Erosion, dock damage, and minor flooding is expected. Chief Meteorologist Dave Rexroth is tracking wind in the area, which is creating major problems for people who live along the lake.
Been a long time problem, right? We got all the rain in the spring and all the lake levels came up, even all the way back to Lake Superior. So this is going to be a persistent issue until it starts to freeze up, and then maybe even early next year as well. So here's the issue now. The wind is quite strong from the south and southwest. Now, so far, most of this year, we've been talking about winds from the east that have been such a problem. But with these south to southwest winds, 23, you can see gusting to 28 miles an hour there. It's blowing the water on the south side of the lake up toward the north shore. So these are the sustained winds, 10 to 20 miles an hour, but the gusts are close to 30 in a lot of cases around here, between 25 and 30. So that's the problem. Again, pushing up from Lake St. Clair to the south, and then the north shore is the issue. So it's the southern sections of St. Clair County, the shoreline there on the north shore of Lake St. Clair, and over into Macomb County as well. This goes till 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. At that point, the winds will start to shift behind the cold front that we're going to get the storms from tonight, and then things calm down there a little bit. So not much going on right now. We had the first batch try to get close to us and fizzle out through the morning hours. But if you notice, I just showed you at the top of the hour about 17 minutes ago, these two little clumps of storms, and notice how quickly the line is developing to the south. So that will come in from Milwaukee, work its way to the east, and it's our issue here about 7 o'clock and beyond in terms of getting some nasty weather in here. So 7 o'clock, you can see out by Lansing starts to percolate a little bit too much. 9 o'clock in the metro area. Most of this is done around midnight or so as it pushes away. That's the cold front kind of clearing things out for us. Concerned about wind, hail, and an isolated tornado is not out of the question here. This bright yellow area is actually a slight risk, but it is the greatest risk anywhere in the lower 48 for severe weather. So we're under the bullseye here tonight watching for you. This evening, 70s. Storms are expected, possibly severe. Again, 7 p.m. to midnight is a time frame. After that, they go away. 64 for the overnight low, and then tomorrow, 72. It's a cooler day, absolutely, behind the front. Winds to the northwest, 10 to 15, maybe a little more blustery than that, and we'll get clearing skies. So if you wake up some clouds early, give it a little time, it's going to get brighter, but certainly is going to be cooler. We'll be watching for you. For now, nothing going on. Annie?
When it comes to the leading causes of death, a new study says there's a shifting trend. For a long time, cardiovascular disease has been the leading cause of death for adults who are middle-aged. The study now says that cancer is closing the gap in some countries. The researchers say of the two issues, cancer tends to be the bigger problem in higher-income nations. A serious concern when it comes to children's lunches. A report from the University of Bristol says a child lost his sight because of his diet. They say the 14-year-old only ate fries, Pringles, white bread, and processed ham and sausage since elementary school. Now, the doctors say he didn't appear to have any obvious issues at first, but they ran tests. They treated him for several nutrition-related issues. A year later, he lost his sight and also had hearing issues. All right, let's start the news feed. Houston police say a man pulled a gun at Popeye's restaurant because he was upset they were out of chicken sandwiches. Fortunately, no one was hurt. The suspect eventually left with his friends. Police are currently reviewing surveillance video. Well, Prince Harry is making a push for sustainable travel, but this comes after he faced criticism for taking private jets to vacations, despite his vocal support for protecting the environment. The Prince is teaming up with a number of travel companies as part of the project. Singer Ariana Grande is taking aim at the retail chain Forever 21. She says the store used her image and likeness in its marketing campaign without her permission. The two sides had been negotiating a deal before talks broke down in February. Grande is suing them for $10 million. Dog breeding has had an unexpected impact on canines. A new study says not only have we changed factors like their colors or size, but we've changed the shape of their brains. Scientists say a significant takeaway from the study is that humans have made an impact on another species' evolution in a relatively short time. This applies to a number of dog breeds, including hounds and retrievers. There's just something nice about seeing all those likes on your Facebook posts, but that actually could be going away. Would it be for the better, or do we really benefit by seeing all those likes? We're getting perspective on this coming up. It's one of the biggest components to Facebook. The reason some people post a lot and keep coming back could be changing. Facebook is considering running a test to hide the amount of likes on posts and pictures. That's according to TechCrunch. Instagram is already testing the feature, and so far the response has been more positive than negative. Josh Oakes with smartsocial.com says the reason social media is considering going this way is pretty simple.
Realizing it's not sustainable for people to care about the quantitative value of what they're putting out there, but rather to get them online connecting with those that they love and the relationships that they have that are close.
And while it may seem like not being able to count likes might make people want to post less, the opposite may be true. People who maybe didn't post because they didn't think it would get a lot of attention may do it now.
We find that when people post in a more positive and productive manner online, all of these numbers really don't matter. That means that they post their activities, their family, maybe volunteer, and the things that they're doing in a fun way that's positive and full of gratitude, and that tends to give them a purpose online instead of just a pastime.
Instagram started testing hiding likes in Canada. Over the summer, it expanded to 6 more countries, but it's not in the U.S. just yet. People from Florida to the Carolinas are evacuating from Hurricane Dorian. Some have been forced to leave their pets behind. Ahead, the group stepping in to help.
Thank you so much, Annie. Also ahead on 7 Action News at 4, caught in the crosshairs. A mother of 7 gunned down during a picnic at a Detroit park. What her family needs from you to help bring her killer to justice. That and more still ahead right here on 7 Action News at 4. We are back in just a moment. A family is desperate for answers after a mother of 7 was fatally shot during a picnic at a Detroit park. 1 month after her life was taken, they are turning to the public for help to bring her killer to justice. Alan Campbell joins us right now with the family's emotional plea and the big reward for anyone who can help solve this case. Alan?
Yeah, Carolyn, this really is a heart-wrenching tragedy. In fact, not only for her family, but also for all of her friends. And the worst part is that they know her killer is still on the streets. Now, this happened back just before 7:30 on August 3rd at the corner of Burt and Plymouth Roads in Rouge Park. That's on Detroit's west side. 30-year-old Francesca Marks was there enjoying a picnic with her kids when a fight on the basketball court turned violent. Sadly, Francesca was caught in the crossfire. 1 other man was also shot but survived. Meantime, police are still desperately searching for the person who pulled the trigger. Her family today stood with Crime Stoppers, pleading with anyone who has information to come forward.
I don't know how much I can stress. You don't take that kind of foolishness to a park or anywhere, and you don't do things to take other people's lives. And man, just turn yourself in. Anybody that knows something, contact the police. This family needs closure. We need to know what happened.
Officers say the suspect was seen leaving the scene in a newer black Mercedes, then returned and left again in a silver Dodge Charger. Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of $2,500 for tips that lead to an arrest in this murder case of Francesca Marks. Remember, you can call this number, 1-800-SPEAK-UP, and remain anonymous. Carolyn?
Yeah, we got to hope somebody will come forward. Thank you so much, Alan. All right, Dorian is losing strength as it churns closer to Florida, but millions along the coast are not out of the woods just yet. Chief Meteorologist Dave Rexroth is tracking the Category 2 hurricane and what to expect next. Rexy?
Yeah, so we say losing strength, but you remember it's coming off of winds sustained, 150, 165 miles an hour. So still a big deal here and very, very close to the Florida coast, as you can see. 110 mile per hour sustained winds. That's averaged over 1 minute, gust to 125, starting to just barely leave now the northern section of the Bahamas. They've had so much trouble. So this is what Carolyn was showing you, the radar. You can obviously see the eye there. As it moves to the northwest, all right, the strongest wave action, the strongest winds are in the northeast quarter, or the front quarter to the right, and so that's good for the Florida coast. But this is a hurricane warning now near Jupiter here, all the way up almost to Jacksonville, and you can see some of these outer bands that have very gusty winds with them, about 55 to 60 miles an hour at times, are going to be a problem, and it's going to be slowly moving, so it's a problem. Only moving northwest at 5 miles an hour. Here is the actual path now. By the time we get to 8 o'clock on Wednesday in the evening, approaching the South Carolina-Georgia shoreline and getting very close to the outer banks here of the North Carolina by the time we get into Friday. So a tough go absolutely for an entire eastern seaboard. This is the spreading out over time of the winds. All right, the probability to get to hurricane force winds, this kind of brownish area in here is likely, so it's kind of flirting with the coast, and we'll see how that goes over the next several days now as it moves up the east coast.
These before and after images of Grand Bahama Island really give you perspective on the flooding they're experiencing from Hurricane Dorian. The satellite picture on the top is before Dorian made landfall. The bottom picture is after. The yellow lines on the bottom picture show where the land was before the hurricane flooded the area. Now in Florida, many are bracing for the full impact of Dorian. Along parts of the coast, some people have made their way to shelters, while others are staying put despite evacuation orders. Chris Stewart has the story from Cocoa Beach.
Well, we've definitely felt a decent amount of wind today. Not as much rain, a little bit of on and off this morning, but that's expected to pick up as the day continues on. Now, officials have been saying, make sure that you take this forecast seriously. We are in a mandatory evacuation zone, but you do see a lot of people here today at the Cocoa Beach Pier coming out, taking pictures, a couple selfies here and there of some really strong surf that we're seeing with Dorian right off Florida's coast. Now, it's unclear what exactly the impact from this storm is going to be. A lot of the people here saying that they're just deciding to hunker down during this storm instead of evacuating.
We wanted to see the water that's coming up.
It's definitely never like that, for sure.
Yeah, it's never like this, ever.
Been there, done that, so this is not all that scary for us. You know, this is just, if you live in Florida, you better deal with hurricanes. If you live in Massachusetts, you better deal with blizzards.
And again, many of the people here have told us that they're just planning on hunkering down for this storm in their own homes, but some shelters did open up this week here in Brevard County. We've also talked to the Red Cross in Orlando that tells us they have supplies standing by for whatever Dorian brings this area. In Cocoa Beach, Chris Stewart, back to you.
Chris, thank you. The storm is forcing shelters to take precautions with their animals. In Jacksonville, more than 200 pets are in temporary foster homes. A shelter there put out a call for storm troopers to step in. Meanwhile, a group in Tennessee is stepping up to help. They're taking in dogs who were abandoned in Florida as people evacuate.
It's just so heartbreaking. I don't understand how people can just leave their animals, their family. And that's what we're all about here. These dogs are our family. You know, they're part of something. They shouldn't just be left behind like they're nothing.
Volunteers are stepping in to help the shelter as it deals with the overflow of animals. And in the Bahamas, one woman is taking it upon herself to help animals in need. She has taken in 97 dogs into her home. Nearly 80 of those are in her master bedroom alone. The home did end up dealing with some flooding, but the woman says all of the dogs are okay. Top in the news feed, a tragic story out of Alabama. A 14-year-old is in custody after he says he shot his family. 5 people were killed. The teen initially called 911 saying he heard gunfire upstairs, but later confessed to the shooting. A chaotic scene at a Minnesota state fair after a person opens fire. 3 people were shot. They are expected to be okay. Witnesses told police they saw a fight before the shooting, but it's unclear if the 2 incidents were connected. Senator Joe Manchin won't run to become West Virginia's next governor. He had previously served in the office from 2004 to 2010 before joining the Senate. Manchin has recently been critical of the leadership in the chamber. Selfies are such a big part of our culture now. Businesses have been putting Instagrammable walls on their buildings, and now there's even a new museum where the entire thing is dedicated to them. Tomorrow, I'm going to take you inside. But still ahead today, there's a new noise coming to national parks across the country, e-bikes. But we're looking at the problem they could help solve.
Rising water levels in the Great Lakes are bringing pieces of shipwrecks ashore along Michigan's Lake Huron shoreline. State maritime archaeologists say sightings of wooden pieces of shipwrecks have been common in recent weeks along Huron shoreline as high waters wash those artifacts ashore. They say this summer's shoreline erosion is giving them a chance to photograph, measure, and study artifacts that are usually hidden deep below the lake. Well, now let's send it back to Annie Taylor with why now may be the time to take a chance on launching a new business if you're a woman. Chris.
There's a renewed push to get investors to put their money towards startups founded by women. A new report says the global economy would see a $5 trillion boost if that happened. Lauren Lawrence used to be a court reporter, and that led her to create new software to make that job easier, and now she has her first investor.
I would love to be an inspiration to anybody who's questioning, can I do this? The answer is yes, you can.
Advocates say another way to help is getting more female investors involved in the startup process. Well, and our program is working to help veterans. Now, this photography class in Buffalo has 35 participants, all of which have seen combat. The class teacher says it's a great way to get our vets to open up after they return home, a sentiment the students share.
I think that photography has really made it easier to vocalize things that it's been harder to do in the past. It really allowed me to find a voice for some thoughts.
The veterans will be able to share their work with the public as the photography will be on display through the 20th. A scary moment for a student pilot after his instructor passed out.
This is one of them things you just have to deal with. It's a situation that you've been thrown in front of and you need to react. It was a sort of fight and flight. That was it.
Max Sylvester's teacher had a seizure during their flight. It was only his third lesson and it was in a plane he hadn't been in before. On top of that, Max hadn't tried landing a plane before. Fortunately, he says he spent a lot of time studying the manuals before flying. The teacher is said to be in stable condition. Well, seeing the damage already in the Bahamas from Hurricane Dorian, you may be asking, how can you help? The unique way veterans are stepping in and what you can do as well.
All right, thank you so much, Annie. Also ahead on 7 Action News at 4.
Now that school's back in session, the homework will be piling up, but don't stress out. We'll share the experts' top 6 study habits in today's Living a Better Life.
All right, thank you so much, Alicia. That and more still ahead right here on 7 Action News at 4. We are back in just a moment.